What's up, my friend? My name is Tony Kaizen from Life in English, and in this video, you are going to correct 5 extremely common English grammar mistakes that students make every single day. Let's do it. All right. The first mistake we are going to talk about is the misuse of the negative form of the verb have. So when have is the main verb in your sentence, or in other words, when you're using the verb have to talk about possession of something, we would say don't have or doesn't have. We wouldn't say haven't or hasn't. Okay, so let me give you some examples so you can see what I mean. I wouldn't say I haven't any brothers. So in this case, this sentence have is the main verb. We're talking about possession. But in the negative form, it sounds very strange to say I haven't any brothers. Now, maybe in other English-speaking countries, they would speak this way. I've actually heard some British people use haven't in this way. But in the U.S., this sounds really strange to say I haven't any brothers. I would say I don't have any brothers. Okay? Another example, Jason hasn't a cat. Again, I mean, you understand it, but it sounds weird. Okay? So we would say Jason doesn't have a cat. So if we're talking about possession, we say don't have or doesn't have. We do not say haven't or hasn't. Now, on the flip side, if have is the auxiliary verb, like in the present perfect tense, for example, then we say haven't or hasn't. So let me give you some examples. Number 1, I wouldn't say I don't have finished my homework yet. It sounds extremely strange. What I would say is I haven't finished my homework yet. So again, in this case, the main verb of the sentence is finish. The auxiliary verb is have. So in this case, we can say haven't or hasn't. All right. So one more example. Jessica doesn't have taken the test. Again, it just sounds weird. Okay. So the natural correct way to say this is Jessica hasn't taken the test. So both sentences, we're speaking in the present perfect tense, and have is the auxiliary verb, and we're speaking about it or we're using it in the negative form. I'm trying not to use too many technical or grammatical terms to confuse you, because at the end of the day, it's very simple. If we're referring to possession, I have something, the negative form is always don't have or doesn't have. Now, if we're speaking in the present perfect tense, for example, and have is the auxiliary verb, then we can say haven't or hasn't, and we would never say don't have or doesn't have in that case. All right, the second common English grammar mistake that students make every single day is incorrectly conjugating verbs when referring to everybody, somebody, anybody, or nobody. Okay, so these words, everybody, anybody, somebody, and nobody, all of them take the singular form of the verb, third person singular. That's how we conjugate verbs when we're using these particular pronouns. Okay, so everybody refers to many people, but when we use that word, we're considering all those people one group, which is why we're using the third person singular. Okay, now other words that also follow this rule are words like team, club, staff, family, and class. Okay, we conjugate verbs in the third person singular when we use those words. Okay, so we could say everybody has a pencil, third person singular. I wouldn't say everybody have a pencil. That's grammatically incorrect. Just the same thing with nobody. I could say nobody wants to leave. I wouldn't say nobody want to leave. That's grammatically incorrect. Or I would say the team has a great coach, or the club does great things. You know, the family is very close. I would never say the team are good, or the club have this, or the family are this. I wouldn't say that. I know in some other countries I have heard, like in England, for example, when referring to the team or some type of group, they conjugate it in the third person plural. So in England, they might say, you know, this football club or this team are doing very good. I have heard that before, but in the U.S., we don't speak that way. All right. All right. Common mistake number 3 is putting the direct and indirect objects in the wrong places in your sentence. So let me give you an example to show you what I mean. Look at this sentence here. Tony gave to Leslie the keys. Now, I don't want to get too technical, but the indirect object in this sentence is Leslie. The direct object is the keys. So this sentence, Tony gave to Leslie the keys, is grammatically incorrect. It sounds strange. Now, I know if your first language is maybe Spanish or Portuguese or something like that, you might say it this way and it might sound natural to you. But the correct way to say this is either Tony gave the keys to Leslie or Tony gave Leslie the keys. So you have two options, right? So let's look at the parts of this sentence so it can become a little more clear. The subject, Tony, okay? The verb, gave. The direct object is the keys, and the indirect object is Leslie in this case. So in English, we can form the correct sentence in two ways. Like I said, the first one is subject, verb, indirect object, and then the direct object. Don't focus too much on those technical terms. Just look at the actual sentence and where the words go or where the words are placed in the sentence. All right. So Tony gave Leslie the keys. Subject, verb, indirect, and then direct object. That's one structure. The second option you have is subject, verb, direct object, then the word to, and then the indirect object. Again, don't focus too much on that. Just look at the example. Tony gave the keys to Leslie. So I can give Leslie the keys, or I can give the keys to Leslie. Those are your two options. Memorize them, okay? All right, English grammar mistake number 4. Very, very, very common. And this mistake is when you use the wrong form of the verb after a preposition. And as always, let me give you an example to show you exactly what I mean. They left without say goodbye. This sentence is grammatically incorrect. We should say, they left without saying goodbye. Now the question is, why should we say it that way? And it's very simple. Verbs that immediately follow prepositions like before, after, since, about, when, despite, for, without. I think I said for twice, but you get the point. All these prepositions, if the verb comes immediately after a preposition, you are always going to use the gerund form or the ing form of the verb every single time. Don't forget it, okay? So, some examples. After graduating from college, she started working full time. So, the preposition after. I wouldn't say after graduate. I would say after graduating, okay? Another example. This course is great for improving your English, or even better, this channel is great for improving your English. Not for improve, for improving, okay? Because for is a preposition. Improve is the verb. So because it comes right after for, you must say improving every single time, okay? And you're going to start to notice that because you might hear somebody saying, thank you for calling, right? Thank you for calling Life in English. How may I help you? Every single time. Thank you for coming. Thank you for calling. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Every single time. And now that you know this, you're probably going to start to notice when people speak after every preposition, if it's a verb, it's in the ing form. All right, the fifth and final mistake that we are going to correct today is incorrectly forming what we call reported questions. For example, he asked me, where do I live? He asked me, where do I live? This is an example of a reported question because we're talking about a question that someone asked in the past. Now, the problem here is that this sentence is grammatically incorrect, even though it makes sense. Okay, so the grammatically correct version of this phrase is, he asked me where I live. Not where do I live, but he asked me where I live. Okay, so in reported questions, we do not use the auxiliary verbs do, does, or did. We simply don't, okay? So here's another example. They asked me, what did I think? Many students or many learners of English say things like this all the time, but the grammatically correct version of the question, or excuse me, of the phrase is, they asked me what I thought. Again, we're talking about a question that was asked in the past. And that's why I say they asked me what I thought. Okay, one more example. She asked me if I did like basketball. Because in the past, she probably said, do you like basketball? So the student, the English learner, thinks I need to conjugate or ask the question the same way. She asked me, did I like basketball? That would be the question in the past. But since it's a reported question, you're talking about a question that was asked in the past, you're not going to use the auxiliary verb do, does, or did. So I would say she asked me if I liked basketball. Okay, so if it's still not clear, try to rewind the whole video or just this section, watch it again, and always feel free to leave your questions or comments or concerns, observations, whatever you want in the comment section below. And I need to remind you that you will not remember any of this information if you do not practice. Okay, so like I said, rewind the video, watch it all again if you need to, practice with your language exchange partners or your teacher, whatever you got to do, just practice. And And if you're having a lot of trouble finding a language exchange partner, you should definitely consider joining the Life in English VIP community, where you can practice your English with me and other students or learners of English just like yourself every single day, anytime you want. All right. So if you're interested in that, you can click the link in the description or go to lifeinenglish.net/VIP. All right, my friend. But that's it for now. So thank you so much for your time and your attention, and I will talk to you soon. Peace.